Are we live?
You sound great, John. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Greatest Salesman podcast. My name is Dan McCormick. It's what we call Wisdom Wednesday here, and I am honored each and every week at 2 p.m. Pacific time to welcome into that chair that John Haremza is sitting in, and we call him the greatest salesman in the world. I've known John for about 10 years, and John, what I love to do when I start the show each and every week is welcome our first timers. If they're here for the first time and they've never been with us before, we're live on StreamYard. And so we can take your comments on the screen. We're live on Facebook. We're live on YouTube. It'll be streamed out to across the globe on different podcast sites. And there's Sharon Ryder. She's always with us. It's great to welcome her and Gabby from America Samoa. And if you're new with us and you've never been here before, feel free to comment, ask John a question, bring up different points, tell us who you are and where you're from. You can always go to thegreatestsalesman.com to listen to previous shows, thegreatestsalesman.com, or you can pull up the podcast on any of your favorite podcast sites. Feel free to like and comment, share, review the podcast as we go. And John, it is an honor. I know you're busy. I see you everywhere. You're writing books. You're speaking on Zooms. You're in virtual conferences. You have this unbelievable story that we'll talk more about later. But I love to ask our guests, if you could, from a value proposition as we get started here today, what are the three things that shape your life, you feel, or each and every day of your life?
That's an interesting question. I think probably the first thing, and it, is a huge part of my life, my daily activity, my focus, and that is personal development. I mean, I would not be where I am today without personal development. I mean, this whole business, our whole life is mindset. And I think, the thing about personal development too, is I tell people it's like bathing, if you don't do it every day, if you don't do something to keep your the proper mindset and grow personally, you're going to get, stinky or dirty like that person that doesn't take a shower, and nobody will want to be around you. So I think that's number one. I think this kind of plays in part with that as well. Number two is I have a personal philosophy that I live by, and I articulated it in my book, but I really live it, right? And that is, I call it small steps to the top. Essentially, that never underestimate the impact of every decision you make, regardless of how small or insignificant at the time. And I can tell you a story later on this, but just us talking here today, somebody tuning in today, whatever we did earlier today, everything we do, the decisions we make throughout our day make a huge difference on the outcome of our life and where we are today in our life. And so I guess that would be two. My third one, I think as a core value, is I always do what I say. I mean, I don't commit to things. I don't say things unless I'm willing to follow through. Even if I regret it, right, at the time, because I committed to it, I follow through. I mean, I don't know if you'd call that just my word. My word, when I make a commitment, when I tell somebody I'm going to do something, I always will follow through with that.
I love it. Every week I'm inspired by what people have, how they answer that question. And I wonder, can you take us back? I mean, I'm thinking that small town in Minnesota, where was the inspiration? What was the first book maybe? What was somebody that was a mentor? Where did that number one of the three come from?
Well, the number one of the three, I know exactly. I was still part-time. Okay. I was a maintenance person. I was working in a potato chip factory. I was up in the break room, and the Fargo Forum. I was living in a small town in Minnesota, about an hour and a half out of North Dakota, out of Fargo, and there was a big display ad in the Fargo Forum that said Zig Ziglar was coming to town.
Wow.
Okay, and I talk about this, and I just remember the coworkers teasing me, after the fact that, did you ever see that zigzag guy? But he had told, you probably know the story, the flea training story. He told, that was the one thing I came out of that event with I mean, it was all motivational and inspirational, but as far as that one major takeaway was his flea training story.
He has some of the greatest. What I love about the guy is the animation when he tells the stories. The hands are moving. He is so
The
fired
pumping
up.
of the pumping the jack of the water well. Yeah.
Yeah. If anyone hasn't watched Zig Ziglar on YouTube, go find some videos. You will love it. So that's a great story because we all have that place, that book. You know, the journey is so real. And one of the great honors I have is to be here each and every week and interview the greatest salespeople in the world. And it just so happened that The Greatest Secret was put in my hand. The Greatest Salesman is the book. The Greatest Secret is the journalized version. And I love scroll number 7 because you're sitting in the chair. He ends the scroll by saying, I will be the greatest salesman in the world has ever known. You have had quite a career. I mean, you've hit a pinnacle of success that is in the message box here on Facebook as we looked at your bio. You've hit a level of success that is really outrageous. So I know you've had to. I love how you say small steps to the top. I love how you validate it when you do what you say. Your team obviously knows that about you. And so I wonder when you think about those small steps, because I think everybody would look at you and say, wow, I wish I could be at the top with John and have those millions of dollars in income.
Yeah. So, I mean, if I was going to tell you that story and now might be a good time. So, I am a maintenance person, right? I'm a blue collar worker. I'm working in a factory. I started there right out of high school. I have a learning disability. I have dyslexia. And so, I was that kid in school that just sat in the back of the room, tried not to be. I went through through high school trying to be invisible, just not to be noticed, not to be called on, having to leave classes to have tests read to me and all these special classes, so I had no self-esteem, no self-confidence, right? I came right out of high school. I went to work at this potato chip factory. And a friend of mine invited me to someone's home to look at a water filter. And I thought they wanted me to build a display because the idea of selling something never, in my wildest imagination, ever entered my mind. The idea of talking to people was not something I was interested in, right? And so here's where the small step comes in. I'm invited to this home. There is a breakdown at the factory. I ended up having to stay late. I put in a 10-hour day in, maybe a 12-hour day. I mean, I can't remember exactly, but I was tired. I just wanted to go home, sink into the couch, have something to eat. But I had made the commitment to go to this home party. And that was my introduction to the direct sales and network marketing industry. So you think about that one little decision to go follow through with my commitment versus go home. What I wanted to do is go home and just slouch into the couch and, after a long, hard day. And that one decision, how it changed the complete course of my life, right? But then you think of the compounding effect of that one decision, right? Literally hundreds of thousands of people as a result of that little decision I made to go versus go home, not just changed my life, but influenced the lives of literally 100,000 plus people.
Well, and I think that in your bio, you mentioned that maybe more than $250 million in commissions for your teams that you've worked with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I've, probably total sales, that I've generated in my now 32 years in the industry is, something over $500 million. And, most companies, if you look at it, about 250 million of that paid in commissions.
Amazing. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say it quite that way that you did. First the personal development, yes, but small steps. And then it's like that little pebble that gets dropped into the water, right? There's that little ripple that then you did what you said. And it's amazing that somebody that could say no to a phone call, somebody could say yes to the phone call, someone can show up at that Zig Ziglar meeting, the light could turn red on the way there and you don't want to be late. You don't want to see people. That's interesting that you and I both had somewhat of a learning disability. And I was always conscientious about my ADD. I mean, there was no ability to concentrate for periods of time. So I couldn't learn in school. So you actually tried to disappear. I tried to make myself the center and the issue because I didn't have that self-esteem. So that's a very interesting compare and contrast. What was the first thing you ever sold? Was it the water purifier?
Yeah. So, I mean, so I went to this event, right? I was 2 hours late. And I remember, I show up, I'm wearing a hairnet, I got protective goggles, a blue uniform, grease, smelling like a potato chip, because I worked in a potato chip factory. And I just remember coming in 2 hours late, the disdain on what I termed as these two suits from Minneapolis, right? They had come down to give this presentation, and they're just like, we just waited, 2 hours for this guy, right? There were 5 of us there that night. And we're all excited, right? The next morning, I was the only one left excited, wow. Right? And so there's another, little decision. I mean, all of those people are still my friends, but their lives are much different than mine, right? But here's to your story, to your question. I ended up buying 4 water filters that night. And, they're 120 a piece, $480. That weekend, I go to a neighboring town, and I knock on doors. This is December of 1988 in Minnesota. I'm knocking on doors, asking people for a free. We sold these things called a puppy dog approach. Leave it for a week. They fall in love with the great tasting water, wouldn't want to give it up. I placed these 3 of the 4 filters. I came back a week later, and I brought my brother with me for moral support. I had sold 1 of the 3 filters. I bought it for 120, sold it for 179. I put $59 in my pocket. I looked at my brother and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be rich. This was the easiest $59 I ever made in my life. And so now he wants to join me. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I don't want competition. I just wanted, all I could see was buying a filter and selling a filter. The idea, I thought, why would I want to recruit someone and create my own competition? But he's my brother. And I said, okay, I'm going to let you in on this, but we need to make a pact between us. No one else is to know about this, right? So I entered the industry trying to keep it a secret.
That's great. I'm looking for the quote in the book because you just said something that I thought was so great. And, you said something, and I count this as a quality amongst friends that I just really value, because you said, the others that came to the meeting didn't sign up, but they're still friends. That says a lot about you, John. And Og says in the book that when he's telling the story with Hafid at the early stage of the book, I always counted your friendship as my greatest asset. And I truly believe that while we might not recruit everybody or sell everybody, we certainly shouldn't ever lose a friendship over it. And I really want you to comment on, how do you go about maintaining those relationships and friendships?
Well, I mean, I think number one is you don't throw it in their face, right? I think that's number one. I think there's either real relationships or there's not. And I've experienced both, right? I tend to have all real relationships and then I realize some of them weren't real. Right? Because of the way they react to the situation. Right. And this is true in our business because I've been with 4 companies over my 32 years, and people who I thought were real friends. And I have people in all of those companies that I still communicate with, still call great friends. Maybe we don't talk all the time because of not working together, but we're still friends. But there's others who I thought were friends that, literally, disown you. And so that's not a real friend, And so when you have real friends and you maintain and you respect that relationship and their decisions, I think this business is a relationship business.
It sure is.
Life is about relationships, right?
Yeah. Boy, look at this. We've got visitors watching right now from Scotland to Austria, to Vienna, to San Francisco. It's just awesome to see your comments. Feel free, if you're joining us, put your comments in here. If you know John Haremza, he's a great guy, a great friend, a great leader. His book, Right or Almost Right. Is that right? Is that your latest book?
Right or Almost Right. Well, actually, my latest one is called Network Marketing in the New World. Really, I embracing, what's happened in the world with the COVID situation. But yeah, Right or Almost Right is, a great book.
Yeah. Yeah. You've done a lot in that area. If anybody wants to see John's writings and get those books, you can follow him on Facebook, John Haremza, just as you see it up on the screen here. You'll see it right on the front of his page there. You can go to his webpage, etc. And that's fantastic, John. I think that I heard one time that everybody should do three things. You should have a child, plant a tree, and write a book. And so you might have all those done. I don't know. What do you think?
I have.
You've got a fruitful life then, according to that philosopher, whoever said that. But I wonder, because of the difficulty of learning, when was the first time you heard about The Greatest Salesman, if you can recall? Maybe the first time you listened to it or tried to read it, or how did you get the learning through your brain?
Well, I mean, the title, The Greatest Salesman in the World, you hear about that, and I know I've heard about it forever, right? And I probably listened to it if it was on audio way back when, but I was not reintroduced to it until you reached out to me, 10 days ago, and we talked about doing this interview, and then I went and had listened to, because I'm not a reader, right? I still don't read well, and I don't retain when I do read, and so I listened. And so I bet over the course of, the last 10 days, and I do this a lot from a mindset standpoint. I go to sleep at night listening to stuff. And, so listening to the scrolls, the 10 scrolls, probably at least a half a dozen times over the last 10 days, and was listening to it again this morning. I ended up waking up about 5:30 and put that on and listen for an hour.
Oh, fantastic. It's amazing when you hear a genuine, authentic voice like Og's voice, and you hear, at the end of every dry desert, green grass grows. I wonder, in the 4 companies you've been in, what was it like in some of those dry deserts?
Well, I mean, you have to, many times you just have to go through the desert, right? Because you can get to that green grass, regardless. And I am the person that's to stick it out, as long as humanly possible, until you have completely exhausted or your belief is completely gone. Then it may be time to move. But you need to sometimes, even that whole, stopping 3 feet short of gold, the W. Clement Stone story, gold, the gold mine that there. So, but for me, it's a tremendous learning experience going through those deserts. And if you haven't been through that dry desert, you haven't had much success. And I promise you will go through the desert. It's inevitable, right? And real leadership, I think, is demonstrated in more in the difficult times than in the good times. I always say it's easy to be a leader when things are great. Yeah. Real leadership is when you are going through the desert, and you have to help people, see that green grass on the other side, because you believe it's still there. You believe we're going to find the grass. We're going to make it to the other side.
Yeah. Right now, I believe that this is the best of times, and I believe that 2021 could be the largest year in the history of the direct selling world. We have so many people connected now: Zoom, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, LinkedIn, you name it. Billions of people connected, everybody reaching out and buying online. What is your vision of the future right now?
Well, I'm 100% on board with you on that. Our world has changed. Behaviors have changed. The way we do business. There's going to be some businesses that will never come back. There are things that are ancient now that will never come back. And because everybody knows Zoom, everybody is comfortable, with this kind of communication. And I believe we're going to have events again in our industry. And we'll have large events, and there'll be weekly events and that kind of stuff. But this is going to be the primary method. Zoom or some platform of that nature is going to be our future. So, yeah, and I think the scare of the security that one thought they had in a small business, that they thought they had in some rock solid company that got turned upside down as a result of this, has opened minds up to look at the home-based business concept. You're in the home-based business. I'm in the home-based business. Our lives literally, other than not traveling like we did, our lives really haven't been disrupted.
Yeah.
Right. We're just doing what we're doing. We just do it a little different way.
I think my very first show, I had a gentleman on the show that I worked with back in the 90s, Ty Best. And Ty said, Dan, I've been living a quarantine life for 30 years doing network marketing. He says it was
I
the
love
phone
it.
calls, and then it was the new technologies and so on. So you're absolutely right. I love Fafita. If you can go ahead and put the Fafita comment back up there. The dry desert, she says, it's the thorn that pushes me through. Every week it is so awesome. If you're new with us, welcome to the Greatest Salesman podcast. My name is Dan McCormick. I'm the ambassador for the Augmandino Company. And every week we get a welcome into that chair that John Haremza is sitting in right now as the greatest salesperson in the world. John, every week we do a short little commercial on behalf of the Augmandino Company. We try to tell people, look, don't just read the book, but let's measure those thoughts. Let's challenge the brain. It's a mathematical equation, but it is a magical experience once you take that habitfinder.com/podcast, because we all want that success. We all want to contribute more, to serve more, to earn more. And certainly we want to make sure that, like Og says in scroll number 9, I will act now. I will act now. It's not just about thinking and dreaming about making the millions and living in the paradise of Henderson, Nevada, John. But I know you've been a new convert to the state of Nevada recently. When you were listening to the scrolls, maybe I should say this. I know that you just took the assessment. We're going to get your results, get you queued up with one of our coaches here. But I'm wondering, when you were listening to those scrolls, was there anything that struck you from years ago to present?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing, as I reviewed the results, the two exercises, two very simple exercises, as I'm going through them, I'm asking myself, I'm kind of saying to myself, this is kind of, I mean, what is this going to tell me? Right. And, moving, to positive, to what resonates with you, which doesn't. And then seeing the results in all those categories, I was literally, I can't believe how this all made sense, right? How they got out of those two exercises, they were to get that kind of data that completely resonated and made sense for me.
When people take the assessment, habitfinder.com/podcast, as you see going across the bottom of the screen there, it's a mind bender. You simply say, how is this going to tell me anything? I just say, just trust it. I've been doing it now for, 18 years. And I do it every year, a couple times a year. My wife and I just did it together. So it's quite a unique thing. So when you go back to the scrolls, and I think about Og coming on, writing the book, talking about today I begin a new life. He's coming from that paradigm of being an alcoholic. I think about scroll number 2, which was really the one that probably lit me so up after 38 years in the industry. I kind of wake up every morning thinking I will greet this day with love in my heart. You listened to those scrolls over and over. Was there a scroll that touched you, or was it just conceptually how it all flowed for you?
Well, I think it was the third one, is persistence.
Yeah, I will persist until I succeed. Yeah.
And I definitely, I mean, there's nothing fancy about me, but I step up to the plate every day and I keep swinging. I am in the trenches today like I was 32 years ago when I started this, and I just keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And, so I think that's probably the one that resonated most with my success, in the sense of, now, you talk about 2, greet each day. I definitely do. I'm incredibly grateful for my life and the abundance that we have in this world, and that so many people I want to help them understand they can win here. They can win if they believe a little bit. They're consistent and focused. If we can alter the way they think a little bit and get out of that victim mode and take responsibility for their life, and because I see it every day, I'm sure as you do, people that are they're stuck, and these types of teachings can completely and totally change their life.
Let's put Miriam, let's put Sharon's comment, Sharon's writer's comment up on the screen here, because John mentioned it a minute ago about how lives and businesses will forever be changed. The restaurant chains permanently closed in downtown Toronto, and we offer new hope to all of those independent people, all of those small business people. New hope that, John, with the right system, the right product, and obviously we all have to have our own belief structure. You just said you're still in the trenches 32 years later. You still do the same thing every single day. And I just want to kind of quote Og here, because in that very scroll that you're quoting, he says, I will remember the ancient law of averages and I will bend it to my good. And I'm kind of like you. I'm not fancy, but I show up every day. I keep making the calls every day. I keep reaching out. I keep texting. I keep, that's how you and I kind of circled back. And I said, I know we have a friend named Michael Monaco, and he kept telling me about your success. And I said, I got to reach back out to John and congratulate him and put him in that chair. So really an awesome thing that you bring out for everybody here about because so many millions of people have been displaced in their career, they just need you and I to find them.
Yeah, and you have to have that belief. You have to have that belief. We have something real to offer people, whatever the company, right? This industry of network marketing, home-based industry, as I go through it, I just sit and I think everyone should be doing this. They should be standing in line. If I could take out of my head the picture, the vision I see, and the power of this industry of home-based, people should be standing in line to do what we do.
I wonder with, you mentioned earlier about your, you struggle reading books and comprehending them. So what is your favorite thing? Is it watching or is it listening to podcasts? Is it watching YouTube videos? What do you enjoy? How do you feel like you retain the most?
For me, it's listening. Right.
Okay.
I listen to the same stuff over and over and over. And when you listen to something, things, trigger and you kind of fix on them for a moment. And then you go back months later, whatever, and you listen to that same audio series and you pick something completely different up. You've grown, you're hearing it a little differently. So don't stop. If you have something that really resonates with you, just keep listening, reading, watching, whatever you enjoy, wherever, like you said, whatever works for you best, where you retain it and get it.
Yeah, I love that. And it just totally harmonizes with what you picked out as your favorite scroll. I will persist, right? I persist until. It's funny because this morning, until that word showed up again for me. I was texting one of our previous guests this morning that taught me about that, Justin Prince, and I just said that word until. It's just a powerful thing to persist until I succeed. And Og says it over and over. You say it over and over. And so hopefully our listeners today can really glean some strength in staying consistent and continuing to persist until they succeed. So I guess in closing, John, we've covered so much here in 30 minutes. It's just awesome to have you. I know you're a super busy guy. You got thousands of people. You were on a Zoom call right before this. You got thousands of people you talk to every single week. You're in front of lots and lots of people. So we talked about personal development as your number one thing. Number two, the small steps, which is really brilliant because really what Og is telling us out of the 10 scrolls is just a little bite every day, right? Just a few minutes each and every day, and then do what you say. I really think that means a lot. And I think that your team must really appreciate you putting that into text and contextualizing that for them. It's a big deal to feel good about doing what you say.
Yeah, and I think they say that definition of a commitment is doing what you said you were going to do long after the feeling goes away when you said you were going to do it. Because we can all get excited about things and say we're going to do something, but the next morning it's a little bit more difficult. And when you make that commitment, you make that declaration that you're going to do something. For me, it was kind of that you're going to see me, at the top of the mountain or dead along the side. Right. Because and sometimes I almost think I should go back and thank some of the negative people in my life for, making the hair on the back of my neck stand up, to persist, beyond, because people take that the other way, right? They get that negative input, those naysayers, and then they listen to it. They let them get into their head and they quit. Right. We talk about that persistence. Nobody fails. They only quit. I don't care what the business is, what you want. If you persist long enough, right, you're going to learn, you're going to grow, and you'll eventually get there. And the only way you won't is quit.
Maybe somebody can type that in for us in closing. Nobody fails, they only quit. Man, that is so full of wisdom right there. And I know that this is just an honor for me to welcome you into the Greatest Salesman chair and look forward to your success and share more about the journey and learn from you. He's the author of Right or Almost Right. He's the author of Network Marketing. I don't see it on your page right now. What was the name of the newest book?
Network marketing in the new world.
Network Marketing in the New World. And it is just fantastic that you take the time to put those kinds of things into print for the people on your path. And I hope people will follow you on your Facebook page, and I hope people will really enjoy re-listening, taking notes, and just an honor to have you. Go ahead. What do you got?
I've got these little booklets. They're passport size. On small steps. Nice. They're like little leather bound, like a passport. One on overcoming objections, one on mindset. My whole life revolves around mindset, and I think everything can. And I have one more that is network marketing. Why network marketing?
Cool. Those are
yeah. So
if I recall, I had something like that back in the day with Jim Rohn. I'm sure I still have it in my closet somewhere. But all those little, like you say, passport size little booklets. That's great.
I have those exact same booklets. I love them. They're all Jim Rohn quote booklet. I love that booklet. Jim Rohn quotes are unbelievable wisdom in every one of his quotes.
The quotes are unbelievable wisdom, and the draw on his voice is even better. When you hear that voice, you just know you're hearing a voice of genuine authenticity, aren't you?
Yeah, that and Earl Nightingale.
Yeah, Earl Nightingale.
Yeah, actually, in listening to the scrolls on the YouTube, and the next one down, or two down, was Earl Nightingale, Lead the Field, also one of the very first set of tapes I ever bought. And it's probably been 20 years since I listened to that. And I listened to that the other day again, too, and was so inspired from hearing his voice and the incredible wisdom that he has as well.
Yeah. Well, you've filled up our tanks today, John. I'm just so thrilled that you could take the time to be with us and share your journey and your insights through your books and your quote books there and all this kind of stuff. And so, my goodness, what an honor. So if anybody's listening today on the Greatest Salesman podcast, you can certainly, whether it's 6 days, 6 months, or 6 years from now, you may hear us on Apple or iHeart or Spotify. Who knows when and where? But it's an honor to be the ambassador to the Augmandino Company and welcome John Haremza today as the greatest salesman in the world. And I want to thank all of our listeners today. And thank you so very much, John. Happy holidays to everybody. Thank you so very much, and have the greatest day of your life. And bye for now.